Hey, hello everybody. It's been way too long since we've gotten together like this. It's so fun to watch your names and your faces pop into my big screen here. It is awesome. Boy, the summer in some ways feels like it went by in a blink of an eye. And yet, as I'm looking at all of you, I feel like it's been way too long since we've been together. So I hope you all have had an amazing, impactful summer, but that you also got to get a little rest along the way because this work can be exhausting and exhilarating. So I'm very happy to see you all come popping in. I'm going to give you all plenty of time to get here and to get settled. If you are able to rename yourself, it would be terrific if you would put in, go in and hit the upper right hand corner, rename, keep your name, but just add your chapter name afterwards. Thank you so much. I love seeing how quickly you all do this. Oh, golly, you all are all arriving at the same time. So I'm just going to give everyone a couple of minutes to get in and get settled and rename yourself when you're able. And then, my gosh, you all have given me a lot of questions. So that always makes this time together really exciting and really fun. So I am very excited to see you all in here. We had, believe it or not, let me just see. We had more than 40 people who registered from 24 different chapters. So that makes me really happy. I love to see familiar faces and a broad representation from our community, which is terrific. So I'm going to let you all keep on popping in. When you're able to rename yourself, please go in and add the chapter next to your name. At some point, you will either ask a question or provide guidance, and the other people on the call will always ask, wait, what chapter are you from? So if you can name yourself that way now, it'll make it easier as we begin to move forward. Oh my gosh, Beth, happy to see you from Owensboro. We've got Northwest Florida. We've got Garden State, Baldwin County, Nashville, and of course, East Bay, Gulf Coast. That's exciting. You all are just launching, coming up on your membership deadline, right? October 1st. We're clicking through. Carrie from Genesee County, I'm going to see you next week in real life. Stella from Sarasota. It's so exciting to see you all on here. Hi, Stephanie. Nice to see you too.
Great to
Oh
see you,
my
Linda.
gosh. This is like a fun little reunion, you all. So I'm very happy to see you here. Thank you for joining us. You know, we just took a break from these chapter chats over the summer because we heard so many of you say that your schedule wasn't your own in the summer. So I've definitely missed you all. And I'm glad that we have had individual conversations. If we have not had a chapter chat, I do have a terrific list of questions that will get us started. And we'll go through a little bit at a time. If this is your first chapter chat, I'm Wendy Seal, and this is an open forum for you to ask questions, share ideas, and share resources with each other. So we always begin with the questions that have been submitted in advance. I will introduce very quickly Haley Carney from East Bay. She is helping us out today and will be monitoring the chat. She will help keep me in line if I miss a comment that someone puts in the chat. She will point it out because I'm not as good at multitasking in that way. Haley is a member of East Bay. Before that, in Traverse City, and now she works alongside me at Impact 100 Global. You'll also see, if you read our newsletter recently, you'll also see Stella Lapton is on the call. She is from Impact 100 SRQ, and she is our resident expert for all things social media. So she's posted some best practices in our last newsletter, and you will look forward to getting even more assets for you to use and repurpose for your own chapter. We do have a lot going on at Global that I want to make you aware of in case you may have missed. First of all, if you don't get our newsletters or people on your board don't get our newsletters, let us know. This is not meant to be an exclusive email list. It's meant to be inclusive. So if anybody wants to receive our emails, our newsletters, our reminders, please make sure that we get them all signed up. In addition, we've got a lot happening. We will have our annual Global Day of Impact this November. It's always the first Thursday in November. And the Global Day of Impact is a day that we celebrate the community of Impact 100. The other thing we do is I always get questions. Tell me how many chapters we have right now, and tell me how many new ones launched, and tell me how many are in development, and how much money have we collectively given away. All of those answers are given on the Global Day of Impact. It's always the first Thursday in November. We will be live streaming with our hosts of Impact 100 Greater Milwaukee. So this year it falls on November 7th, a mere 2 days after the presidential election. So I am sure we'll have a lot on our minds, and hopefully we will all be celebrating regardless of where our federal election lands, that we will be celebrating that there is nothing that can ever divide the members of Impact 100, that our connection surpasses any political preference or ideology or viewpoint, and truly embraces the diversity of our own communities and each other as we link arms to support the local areas where we live, work, and play. So we will have more on that later. Something else is going to happen that coordinates with our Global Day of Impact, and that's the day that our illustrious 2025 Global Conference Committee has been working hard on. We expect to open registration right around the same time as the Global Day of Impact. If you go to our website under events, you will see the 25 conferences there. We're staying right on the beach in the panhandle of Florida in beautiful Sandestin. We have a hotel block for the dates of the conference, which is October 26th to the 28th in 2025. And I have had people ask when registration is going to open, because we've been putting out our save the date. So we've made it the goal to open by the Global Day of Impact, but the hotel room blocks are already there. And I know there are women who have already contacted the hotel to make sure that they can secure a room. Now, the conference goes from Sunday, the 26th of October until Tuesday, the 28th. But of course, if you want to get there a little bit early, maybe enjoy the beach or stay a couple of days after, perhaps with your board as a mini board retreat to sort of synthesize everything that you've learned at our conference. We do have those conference rates on each side of our actual conference. So if whenever you're ready to do that, just give the hotel a call and you'll see the details on our website under the events tab. My gosh, we have a lot going on. So I will take a breath and dive into the wonderful questions that I got from you all. Now, what we've done is we've sort of sectioned your questions, not necessarily in the order that you registered, but by subject matter, so that we can start talking about a particular subject, answer all the questions that are there before moving on to another subject matter. And which is not surprising, we have more questions this month on membership than any other topic. So that's where we're going to lead off from. And we've got all kinds of questions regarding membership. It really stretches the gambit. But what I will say is we had a question about how to engage members more. I will tell you that although this is only one question that came in just like this, I get this question all the time. A lot of chapters believe that membership engagement looks a lot like membership social events. And if you've ever asked me whether having a lot of social events is good for your member retention, you would have heard that to me, social events are very much a high risk, low reward activity. And by that, I mean, when you do a social event, hoping that it's going to engage your members in your work, what ends up happening is that your members may be judging your group and the experience of Impact 100 based on something that is completely not mission aligned. Now, there are many chapters where the community really likes social events, and there are chapters that do a beautiful job of putting on lots of social events that are well attended, well reviewed, and work. So if it works for you, that's up to you. If I were starting a chapter today, or if I were looking at the tasks that we have to do to run a high functioning chapter, I would not do social events for the sake of social events. Now, understand, during membership recruiting season, it's nothing but social events, but they're tied to a mission. You know, you can meet at this boutique and hear about how the Impact 100 model works and shop and have a good time. You can meet at a winery. You can meet at a restaurant. You can take walks. You can go into people's private homes or businesses. That's the right place in your calendar to have a lot of social events. It's not just to recruit your members, but to re-recruit your members from the past. So when you extend those invitations, make sure that you're inviting your existing members and that you're empowering them. When I see successful membership recruitment efforts, very often it's because existing members, they don't just come to one membership event. They get so invested in whatever your membership goal is that they keep coming back to the repeated events, even though they're already a member. And typically at these events, you know, whoever is doing the speaking might ask, you know, who in this room is already a member? Having a few familiar faces who are raising their hands, having already joined for this upcoming year, can do an awful lot for the people in the room to not feel like they're the first people or that they might be jumping in too quickly. It's always nice when you've got a couple of people who will lead. beyond the recruiting season, your social events should be tied to a mission. So maybe you have a social event where you invite past grantees to give an update, and anyone is included to come. That's a very direct connection between their membership in your organization and the grants that you make. Things like coming to the Meet the Finalist event, or helping and volunteering for your big reveal or your annual celebration. People can help in a variety of ways. People can engage with each other in a variety of ways, but always think to yourself, what is this? What's the mission of this? If this is the only event that one of our members attends, will she feel more connected to the work that we're doing or not? And if you can answer that question in the affirmative, then it is a very good engagement tool. Otherwise, we end up sort of getting on this hamster wheel of trying to get more events, to get more people engaged. And then you might get feedback that says, all your social events are outside and I don't want to be outside. So now you're creating inside events, or, gosh, your event all involves food and wine and I'm on a restricted diet. So now you're rearranging what you do. Just remember, if mission is at the core, the rest of the details will follow. There is a related question that has come in. Does anyone call your lapsed members within a time period from the anniversary of when they wrote the check? Now, the idea is to survey that person and to find out why they didn't re-up. I will let each of you on the call weigh in with this, but what I will say as a best practice is that we always want to know why lapsed members lapse. We also want to be mindful about how we address that, what questions we ask. The most important thing to remember is if you go back to one thing that's true of every chapter across the US, approximately 50% of the women who join have never donated $1,000 to a single charity prior to joining your chapter. With that said, that means that it is not a built-in part of their budget. So sometimes things come up. Oh gosh, I'm having a baby, or I'm remodeling my kitchen, or my daughter is getting married, whatever it may be. In other words, there might be very logical reasons why someone might be taking a pause. The other reason, it could very well be that they're just not feeling connected. When you are in recruiting season, you always want to make sure, whether it's recruiting or you're following up after they have lapsed their membership, you always want to make sure and let them know that we completely understand that sometimes members have to take a break. They have to take a year off to do something else. But you always want to make it clear that they are welcome back, that there's absolutely no shame, no disappointment, that they are welcomed with open arms. And in doing so, it will help to keep them connected. If you had some sort of an ambassador program or a buddy system, whoever the person is who's connected to that lapsed member, you want to make sure that they're reaching out and on a regular protocol, not the exact way that they're reaching out to their current members, but just saying, gosh, Wendy, we're sorry you haven't re-upped this year. You would have loved this event. It was at the Flint Farmers Market, and I hope to see you back again next year. So very personalized touch points with lapsed members make sense. Does anybody, and because I have two pages of participants, I will ask you to raise your mechanical hand, the little raise your hand icon on the Zoom. How often do you reach out to lapsed members? Do you have a policy in place? And more to the point, I guess I'll add one more thing. When you're in your recruiting season, if your membership committee calls someone, did that membership committee or your board hear before they lapsed that they were going to take a year off? If so, we want to make sure that that's in a shared database somewhere so that we're not asking for something that this member has already shared with someone else on the team. So any other best practices or anything you've experienced that's worked or made it easier to include lapsed members? I know this is not a shy group. I'm flipping back and forth between the pages. Okay, I'm not seeing any. Oh, Stephanie, thank you.
Oh, sure.
Oh, sure.
It isn't an easy topic. And so I believe we could improve ourselves for our chapter, but we do reach out to them. And in our shared database, like you mentioned, we've had a lot of people move away from the Northern California area. So we try and make a mark of that. We do ask them to see if they could identify somebody to sponsor. Because they still speak very highly of Impact 100 and sometimes join another chapter up wherever they're going. But that's one area that we just try and get some finalization so that we're not continuing to communicate with them, without regard to why they left in the first place. And then those that have left under different situations, we have maintained in contact with them, reach out with emails, and then if they're personal friends, we stay in touch. And we've had a couple lapsed members come back, actually, 2 within the last few years. So,
Good.
But regular contact, like you said, and being genuine and authentic to be able to really try and understand why they left and then see if there's anything that we could have done differently.
Excellent. Thank you. Does anybody else have anything to add? Hi, Anne. Yes, please. You're muted, Anne.
This is our first full year. Hi, Wendy. And thank you for helping us.
Oh, absolutely. Hang on one second, Jerry. Let me go to Anne first from Garden State. I think she had a little audio problem, and then I'll come right back to you next.
Thank you very much. One thing we started doing is we are keeping our lapsed members on our newsletter list so they can see all the wonderful things that we're doing and they can learn about the grants and everything. So we've started doing that. And we have had, I don't think this is the reason because it occurred beforehand, but we have had some lapsed members return. We are very dogged in following up with all of our members who have not indicated their intentions to renew or pay or whatever as we approach our deadline. And so if somebody does not renew, we know why. We know what's going on.
Excellent. That's really good. Another reminder, and we always say this, that you don't have to live in the community. You just have to love the community. And so there have certainly been members who have moved away, but this was sort of their excuse to be able to go back home, go back to this place that they love. Oh, well, I'll just go back, for the annual meeting, or I'll just go back for the big reveal, or I'll just go back. So we often say during recruiting, when you're trying to reach those last few, it's like, okay, do you have a daughter, a sister, an aunt, a niece who might not live in town, but who loves this place, who may want to be a member from afar? Since the pandemic, we now have systems in place where if you're not physically in the area, you can still feel very connected. Jerry, there you go.
Yes.
Jerry,
Hi.
did you have something else you wanted to add?
Well, we just finished our first inaugural year, 117 members, and we begin our membership cycle, obviously the day of our AAM, which is November 14th. But our membership committee took a more proactive approach. We did a survey so we could get a couple of different things from there, what we could do better from our membership, what they liked the most. But also, we are going to use that as a springboard before the AAM to get a verbal pledge or commitment. So we're trying to be proactive to get ahead of the, member retention, attrition component. So we found out we hopefully that'll be effective for us. What do you think of
Excellent. Thank you.
that strategy?
I think that's a great strategy. The only thing I will say, this is the recovering banker in me, that getting a commitment is great, but until that proverbial check is in the bank,
right,
you still have that follow-up. But I think psychologically you get there. I often say if you can get that running start for your annual award celebration, with some of your, we always say you want to renew from the top down. So all of your board members and the inside out, all of the committees, all the people who are involved. If you can get them to not just say they're going to re-up, but re-up, you now go into your annual award celebration, which is kind of your kickoff for the next recruiting year, saying, this year, we gave away one grant of $117,000. Next year, we want to give away 2 grants. Last year at this time, we had 0 members. This year, we have 50 members, or we're halfway to funding our first grant. So that you want any membership goal, you want it shared with your entire membership. You don't ever want the goal to feel like it's the board's goal, or worse, a goal that isn't communicated. The reason that people get engaged is that when they understand that your leaders, they're volunteers working hard, and that everything that happens with an Impact 100 happens because of every single woman who joins. So when we set a membership bar, especially if it's a stretch goal, you want to share that, and you want to use language like, we can't do this without you. Help us to give away 2 grants next year, or 3 or 5, whatever your number is. In other words, we're in this together. And so if hypothetically you have a goal of 300 members, you might tell people when you've funded your first grant, because they're inspired. They know that it's happening. And you might even, tell them when you fund your second grant. But from about that point, your language starts to sound more like, we're not there yet. If we want to give away 3 grants, we need your help. Who do you know? Who can we speak to? We are in this together. And at that point, you hope then at your big reveal, and you reveal that you reached or surpassed your goal, it is truly a heartfelt celebration from everyone, because they worked alongside you helping to achieve that goal. So all really, really good information. We do have other membership questions. So one of them is, how do you encourage members to pay earlier than the last month of your membership drive? I'll tell you what, if I had the recipe to do that, everyone would sleep better at night during the last month. Here's the thing. It's a little bit like, you can pay your mortgage, you can pay your credit card bill, you can pay your tuition the day it's due, or way in advance. Typically, for people to pay earlier than they have to, you want to give them an incentive. Some of the incentives have to do with, and I I'm going to be speaking at 2 annual award celebration in the next 10 days. One of whom has and I don't know the details of it yet. I have a call later this week to learn more, but there is a financial incentive that an anonymous donor is given that if women join by a certain day. And you want to prepare your members that the annual meeting is the culmination of the entire past grant year. It's also the kickoff of your next grant cycle. And so letting them know that there will be opportunities for people who have re-upped before the annual award celebration or who re-up on the spot. I don't want to give away Genesee County's very cool thing that they're doing because I don't want to steal that thunder, but they have something that's terrific. So if people walk into the event, if they've already re-upped for 2025, they have an indication of that on their name tag, and it entitles them something special. And the idea with this is that if I am at the annual meeting and I'm sitting with you all and I start seeing these items all around me, I may be like, well, gosh, I know I could wait until December 31st, or I could wait until whenever the deadline is. But gosh, why wouldn't I want to do it now when I can get this cute something? So they have that. Sometimes we have donors who will give an extra $100 toward the wish lists of your finalists. Sometimes they will give a donation of another kind. In other words, provide an incentive. I was on the phone with a different chapter last week, and they were talking about not raffles, but because we know we need a license for that, so we don't do those. But a giveaway that would happen based on women who have re-upped their membership. And it was like jewelry, like significant jewelry. I was like, my word, you're going to have a run on members. So you want to give them a reason. You want to give them an incentive. Part of that incentive is if you get your running start prior to the annual award celebration, that's your direct ask where you say, gosh, these 40 women re-upped to encourage you. Will you join early to encourage others? Because we won't know how well we're doing until we can start counting members. And we can only count members when they're paid in full, not partially, but fully paid. And so all of that language can be also super helpful. And just being clear, just, letting people know why you would like it. The other thing that can be helpful, make sure your chapter accepts gifts of appreciated stock. Because if I have a taxable moment, and I know we've talked in the past also about RMDs, required minimum distributions from IRAs, you also want to make sure that you know how to accept those, as well as gifts from donor advised funds. But with appreciated stock, very often, if someone has a tax reason to want to make a gift, they are as happy to give you 5 years of membership in this year when they need this tax break versus only 1,000. And so part of what we've found is that when we do accept gifts of appreciated stock, we end up feeling a little cozier because women then are just as easy to prepay 5 years or 3 years or some number because it behooves them and they know they're going to do this and they need the tax advantage this year. So there is another question, and it's talking about CRM systems when you make the investment, what's, how do we choose one system over another? What I will tell you is CRM systems is another one of these sort of beasts that there are chapters who absolutely love their CRM systems. There are chapters who simply tolerate their CRM systems. And there are chapters who are still using Excel, even though they've been around for a long time because it's free or practically free. So it becomes a very personal decision when you start to realize that you want to be able to truly manage your database. You really want to know of your members who participates on a different committee, who volunteers, who goes to our events, who posts on social media. If you get a sophisticated system, you will be able to track all these things and you'll have better data for your purposes so that you can reach them more personally. But it is a very personal decision. The problem historically is that it's a matter of who's going to own your CRM system. Often it's an individual who simply has the title database manager. That is someone who's really good at spreadsheets. She makes sure everything is exactly the way it should be. And she manages all the information. And whether you're the head of membership or grants, or you're on a committee of some kind, she can give you all the information you need and she'll do the data input. If that's not the case, the person whose membership might be the one who manages it. And if all she knows how to work with is Excel, you'll probably be in Excel. Sometimes the secretary of the board might be the one. And if she uses Salesforce during her day job, she might want you to have Salesforce. Someone else is a fundraiser and they use Donor Perfect. They're going to tell you to get Donor Perfect. And so what happens every time you change your system, you run the risk of losing important data. There are a couple of CRM systems that do more than that, and you'll find that in both MemberLeap, which is very popular among chapters, and Neon, which is also popular. Does anyone else want to weigh in? We have had chapters who on day one, in terms of the timing questions, we've had chapters on day one, they launch with all of the right software. They're anticipating growth and they want to put the foundation in right away. There are others who say, we don't know what we don't know yet. We don't even know what we want to track yet. So we're going to keep it fairly simple. Does anyone have a CRM system that you like that we have not mentioned here? Or any other feedback on this notion of managing our member database? I am not seeing hands up. Once upon a time, the most popular membership database by far was Wild Apricot. We don't see very many chapters who are still singing its praises. They might still be using it, but we don't hear as many good things about it. It does sort of tend to ebb and flow. So now we will move on to our grants. We have a couple of grant questions and both, that goes on to the next page. Sorry, I will say we did only have 2 on grants. That's my mistake when I print this stuff out. They both have to do with stewarding the grant after it's been awarded. And so one of the questions is, how often do you find a grantee fails to complete a project? This is a really interesting question, and in its various forms, I would say it happens fairly frequently, but maybe not in the way that the question was asked. So what can happen, for example, if your membership votes to give $100,000 to a nonprofit that's going to build a classroom that's more accessible. And so in their budget and in their grant proposal, they talk about they're going to have, chairs and desks. They're going to have Chromebooks. They're going to have a whiteboard, and they're going to have some other things like that. So you do your grant agreement based on both their budget, your agreed funding, and you then create this contract that there are checkpoints at which the grantee needs to ask you for the next advance on their $100,000 grant. In the scenario that I described, and this actually did happen at a chapter, all of a sudden, unexpectedly, they got a donation of all the desks and chairs that they needed for this classroom. And it was from a furniture company, brand new, lovely, fully donated. And the grantee felt, a little conflicted. And so they reached out to the leadership of the grant stewardship and said, here's our situation, $15,000, we're not going to use the way we thought we would. What does that mean? Well, here's the thing. As board members, as part of the grant stewardship, you want to honor what your members voted for. You want to honor it. And so when you look at everything that was supposed to be funded and the budget, what you might say is, you were just going to have plain whiteboards. Why don't we take our money and give you smart whiteboards? Or they might say, well, gosh, now that you have all these desks, you've got enough room in the classroom to be able to put comfortable beanbag chairs or sofas so that people can recline. In other words, you meet with a grantee, you walk through how to spend the money that is in line with what your members approved, although perhaps not dollar by dollar. At that point, this should be a decision that is negotiated by the person in charge of grant stewardship and approved by your board. This is not something that needs to have, a big feature of ABC grantee got a gift of desks, therefore we decided to give them this. And it also isn't something for your membership to vote on. It is something that you will share by way of an update. But understand that the example I just gave, both parties have good intentions, both parties are transparent, both parties are trying to do the right thing for each other and to be good stewards of our grant money. And so in those cases, it happens. What we know to be true is when word gets out that these nonprofits have been funded by your chapter, other funders will sometimes step up. The other thing that can happen is finalists that you don't select, they can get funding simply because they were named as a finalist. So this is not bad news. This is good news. We have had a couple of situations over the years where something really went sideways. In one case, there was something that was assumed to be a done deal, was not a done deal, and the entire grant was predicated on this agreement that everybody thought was solid, that turned out it wasn't. At which point they had to take very evasive maneuvers on this one. And because they didn't know that the right permissions were in place until well into the following grant year. And so it was a complex system and a complex decision, but they had never funded a penny of the grant, but they ended up explaining to the members and having an extra grant to give away the next year. So there are times like that when it happens. And you want to always be mindful of what was the intent of the application? What did our members vote for? And then try to move forward with a plan as close to that as you can. Does anybody have comments, questions, clarifying thoughts on that notion? Okay. The other question as it relates to grants is also stewardship. And the question is, what's included in the follow-up reports of the grant recipients? What is the frequency of the reports? This is a little bit of a trick question. Most of us, our grant guidelines say that we need to spend our $100,000 grants in no more than 2 years or no more than 3 years. Each grantee, though, is going to be on their own schedule. Most of you have heard the story of the original grant in Cincinnati, Ohio in 2002. We gave $123,000 to the McMicken Dental Clinic. Now, what ended up happening is they got all $123,000 in one check because that was what it took to buy the 5 dental chairs that we were funding. So they had the purchase order. We gave the funding. The chairs came in. Now we do have periodic checkpoints with that, with all of our grantees. But in terms of a funding cycle, that was one check. In terms of anything that is building something or remodeling something, it's going to be unique to the circumstance. In Traverse City, we funded a conversion of a not Jetstream. What's the camper? No.
Airstream.
You know, Airstream. Thank you. And I was like, I know it's not Jetstream, but I'm close. Thank you. An Airstream to a mobile office for a domestic abuse situation, to be able to go and help people wherever they are. And so it took time. They had to identify the right used vehicle. They had to get the right people who will make the changes, and then they have to make the changes, and then it comes back. So this should be a discussion that is candid and transparent, to be able to make sure that on your side, you understand why they're projecting the need for the payment the way they are. They need to understand what milestones they have to hit before we advance any of those funds. And you want to tailor it to that specific arrangement, that specific grantee. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Excellent. Any other comments before I move on to some additional questions on grants? Okay, awesome. So there are a couple of questions, both around training. And we have, does anyone use training videos, new member onboarding, or anything else we need to do routinely? And the sister question to that one is there a repository for documents, ideas, success stories, so each chapter doesn't have to reinvent the wheel? The answer to both those questions is yes and yes. I would say that many chapters use training videos. Very often they record the Zoom video when they're training nonprofits for how to apply, when they're training FAC committee members for how to review a grant application. So there are a lot of videos that get reproduced in order to outlast this one meeting. There are many chapters who have connections with great videographers, and they create what look to me to be very professionally styled and filmed videos that talk about what is Impact 100, why is it unique in your community, etc. So all of those things are often customized to your community with your actual members and leaders playing the starring roles. There certainly are others, and they have a video of me explaining the impact model from an earlier time period. Whatever you do and how you choose to do it is up to you. But we all know that people will learn better if it's multisensory. So if you can do a video, if you can do an audio, if you can do some reading, all of those things make it better. As far as a repository and best practices, if you all don't have access to Impact Manager, which is our online learning portal, please send me an email with everyone on your board that wants to have access to Impact Manager. It doesn't cost you anything, but we do go in and create a login for you. If you go through the modules, you will learn, but you can also download a lot of resources and a lot of sample documents that at least will give you food for thought. Through that access, you can also get to our community forum. Community forum is where we put these recordings for anyone who missed attending in person. Or if you're here and you say, oh, I wish my board member Jane were here, you can send her to the community forum and she can watch the video and read the comments. However, the other thing that we can do there is in that community forum, and we currently have a conversation that was started within the last couple of days where you can ask questions. And anyone who's registered within Impact Manager and wants to be notified about community forum, get a notification. So a chapter leader puts in a question, and then different chapters from all around the world weigh in with their solutions. This is a great way for you to share. I talked about our upcoming global conference. If there are topics that you would like to learn about in a breakout session is typically something tactical, like best practice for surveys, member retention, member recruiting. Those are all breakout sessions, or I should say primarily breakout sessions. Keynote or general sessions, those are the topics that benefit everyone. It doesn't matter if you're a startup or if you've been around for 22 years. Those are the two areas. So if you have something you want us included in that time, please let us know. You can submit to info@impact100global.org. If your chapter is best in class, if you have cool marketing swag or great forms that you like, or videos, or anything else that you think the Impact community would benefit from, please get in touch. Tell us what you've got. Our conference committee has been hard at work now for months and months. But we've been doing a lot of the behind the scenes work. We're getting ready to pivot wholeheartedly into getting the right people to present at our conference. So please share your ideas in that way. Questions? Okay. That is excellent. We now have some event questions. And I know we're running close on time. We have 5 minutes. So I'm going to sort of pull a few of these together. A great question. How many chapters charge a fee for their annual meetings or their grand awards? I will tell you that when the very first Impact 100 started, we said, we don't have any money. We can't buy everybody dinner. So we negotiated the best rate we could at the venue. We chose the menu with our budget in mind. And the very first awards ceremony, we charged our members, I forget now if it was $25 or $35. At the time, we were so worried that it was too much money that we said to anyone, if you have a dietary restriction and you don't want to eat at the event, or if this is a burden, we have people who will cover for you. Gosh, prices have done nothing but go up. So in some cases, it's a partially sponsored to get the price down, and the members do pay something. There are other chapters, Pensacola is the world's largest chapter. They don't charge anything for their annual meeting, but they have it on a Sunday afternoon. It's not a meal. And when you register, there is an optional $25 donation. And I think like 90 something % of the attendees do pay that $25. There isn't a lot of food there because they're so meeting intense. They're giving away 12 grants. And so they need 3 finalists in each focus area. That's a lot of work and a long meeting for everybody. There are several chapters who sort of feel like, on principle, we're not going to charge our members to come to the annual award celebration, and they get it funded. I don't know that there's a right or a wrong, but what I will say is that as now food prices, are more expensive post-pandemic, these event prices are sometimes pretty hefty. And there are some chapters who are charging $85 to come to the annual award celebration. And they're seeing a fall off of women attending not because they think it's unreasonable, but it's more of an economic decision that's weighing into the social or, emotional decision. But I don't think there is a right or wrong way to do it. Anybody have anything to add to that notion? Thank you. Another question, does anyone have experience hosting recruiting events with other chapters? In my opinion, it's very hard to do recruiting events with several chapters. I will say, I believe Detroit, there are 3 chapters y'all might know right in Detroit. Metro Detroit makes up all 3 counties, and then there's one for Oakland County and one for Macomb County. The 3rd county in that area is Wayne, which is downtown Detroit. I think they may have done some recruiting from time to time together because of overflow. A couple of things happen. In this case, what you say is, if you want your membership dollars to fund Oakland County or to fund Macomb County, these are the chapters you join. If you want the opportunity to fund any of the 3, this is the one that you join. There are women who join several chapters. They join all 3. Those are rare. I think that from a collaboration standpoint, we are very collaborative by our nature, and the way the model works, it can be sometimes complicated. And I would say, if you're going to do a joint recruiting event, you want to make sure, just like with your grant finalists, you want to ensure a level playing field. So if you're going to co-recruit, make sure that you're sort of in Switzerland, not deeply in one area or the other. Make sure that your messaging, your speakers, the points they make are well orchestrated, because what you don't want is someone who's a powerful speaker who brings everybody in, and then someone who's less powerful. And it just is something to be mindful of. So I absolutely think it can be done. It has been done. I think Garden State and Hunterdon, I think you all have done some events together also. So that's my impression of that. Do y'all want to add any other tips or questions? Okay. All right. Darn it. We're 1 minute past the hour and we're almost to the end. There was another question. What are the other chapters' themes for grant celebrations and membership drives? So I can tell you right now, I'm hearing a lot of transformation. Like, put the number 4. If you're trying to reach 4 grants, transformation. Fund all 5 is also a very common. Increase our impact. I will tell you that a tagline or a theme that doesn't usually work out as well as we would like it to is each one bring one. That seems too vague. It seems too nebulous. What you really want, and I've rarely seen that be successful. So correct me if it's worked for you. Please tell me how that worked. But it is unusual to see each one reach one and then have this notion that, oh, we had 250 members this year. If everyone re-ups and brings one, we'll be at 500 next year. It just typically doesn't work that way. Sarasota is the fastest growing chapter, however, and they have defied gravity when it comes to how they continue to grow. When they were trying to fund all 5, they had 404 members, and the mantra all year was fund all 5 focus areas. And at the big reveal, they did not fund all 5. They funded 663. So it depends on your community, but you want to, I think that when you look at funding, getting more membership, creating this theme, it really is about something local to your community that your community cares about, that's relevant and attainable. And I think sharing your aspirations can make a big difference. There is a chapter, and forgive me if it's one of you, because I don't remember which one it is, who's doing something different. It's a different play on the each one, reach one, and that is U+2. Kind of nice. Could be if we could replace, if we could augment our own with 2, I think that might work. It is something I just heard in the past couple of weeks, so we'll find out how it works. If you all have had a theme you've used that you thought was effective or helpful, then please share that. Okay, y'all are very quiet today. This is only water, by the way, not coffee, but I am definitely feeling the need for coffee. So one of the questions has, yep.
Looks like there's a question.
So
thank you.
we have some very enthusiastic members of our membership team who are trying to put together these kind of events that it might be what you're talking about. They're meeting, they already tried to do one, but nobody showed up, to meet at a local coffee shop, and they had very targeted messages to members who lived in that geographic area, and invited them to come and bring a prospective member with them. It was held in early September. Nobody attended. We thought maybe it was too early in the year, but is that the kind of thing that you're saying that there usually is not much success with, because they're thinking of trying to organize another one in another town?
So, no, that, and thank you for that question and that clarity. No, that works. Individually, that works. You'll say many chapters, depending on the venue and the capacity, will allow people to bring a guest to your annual award celebration, but not your husband, not your sister, but a prospective member. And so they will often do it that way, and it works. I would say the ingredient missing from their recipe is you want to host it, co-host with someone who lives there, coordinate it with someone who lives there, who is already a member. Other than that, and really, when I love that it's strategic and I love that it's targeted, but I think the extra step of co-hosting it by somebody who's already there can be the difference, because now she's inviting people, and hopefully she's inviting, she could invite 5 or 10 people. She could get the ball rolling, so to speak. So I would make sure that when you go into these local areas where you're trying to expand your reach, engage someone from there, from the planning straight through to the execution.
Thank you.
Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, any other, Kristen, I can't tell if you're raising your hand. You are. Okay, if you could unmute yourself, please. Oh, it's hard on a phone, I know, but you're muted. Let me see. Am I allowed to unmute you? I don't think I can. Bless your heart. Okay. No worries. Sorry. I'm seeing people hop off. We're now 8 minutes past our deadline. So thank you for being a part of Impact 100 and a part of my life. Thank you for being here at this chapter chat. We've got them scheduled straight through the end of the year. So I hope to see more of you in the future. And I'm excited that I'm going to come see a few of you coming up very soon. So take good care. Thank you for all you are doing. And until next time, I'll be here cheering your impact.